Imagine becoming the son-in-law of a man who falsely imprisoned your mother. Imagine marrying the daughter of the people who destroyed your family. This story shook me, and you need to settle down for this one. Hello, Bussy here, and you're welcome to Life Stories with Bussy, where true life speaks and healing begins. So today's story was written in by a man who says he's been part of our community since 2021, and things happened recently and he decided to share his story with us. Settle down, get yourself popcorn and soda, or better still, if you're on your bed, get yourself a cup of tea, because you would need to keep awake for this one. So let me give you time to do that, right? Okay. Ready? Let's go there. So it starts. It goes, I am one of those quiet men who has been with you since 2021. If I have a shekere, I need to raise that shekere for this man, but just imagine that I'm raising a shekere for you. Thank you very much for being with us since 2021. I live in the US now, and I watch because my whole life has been a story. In fact, if you ever want a Nollywood movie script from my life, I'll gladly give it to you. I'm writing because I want to share the story of how I became the son-in-law of my father's former boss. And the reason I'm writing is because of that part you keep hammering on, being good, doing the right thing even when no one is watching. My wife knows I'm writing to you. She's even the one encouraging me to write a book about my life. She said you're a ghostwriter and maybe you'll be the one to help me. I'd gladly love to help bring your story to life. I was born into a family that had only one problem. We were poor, but we loved each other fiercely. We lived in AJ City. Everybody knows what AJ City is, right? Okay, that's Ajegunle. What he's trying to say is that he grew up in Ajegunle. We didn't have much, but we had what truly mattered. My father was a driver for a family, let's call them the Williams family, a wealthy Ikoyi family. During the week, he lived in their BQ and only came home some weekends or on his off days. And every time he came home, he brought stories of wealth we couldn't imagine. Our mother was the queen, and our father treated her like one. He helped her cook, wash plate, sweep, wash clothes, everything. He didn't do it because someone forced him. He did it because he adored her. We were all boys, and my father trained us to treat our mother with respect and love. Poverty didn't destroy us. Love shaped us. One year, we were owing rent, and the landlord threw our things outside. My father had gone to plead with his boss, Chief Williams, for a loan to settle the rent. The man looked him in the eyes and said, if I keep loaning everybody who comes my way money, I'll be poor. I'll be a driver like you. My father came home with that insult heavy in his heart. When the landlord threw our things out, we slept in the open that night. We had nowhere to go. Most of our relatives lived in the village, and the only relative in Ikeja was abroad at that time. The only place we could think of was the Williams BQ, where my father stayed during the week. So we followed our father to Ikoyi to squat in the BQ. He warned us, don't let Chief see you, make yourselves scarce. But one day, Chief saw my brother and the cover was blown. My father begged him, and Chief grudgingly allowed us to stay for a short time. But from that moment, we became houseboys, washing cars, cleaning compound, gardening, doing laundry, running errands. Their older children were abroad. Only two younger ones were in boarding school, my wife and a younger brother, so we rarely saw them. Life continued like that until the day everything changed. That day, my father traveled with Mrs. Williams. The cook was off duty. We had gone out on errands, and even the gate man had been sent on errands by Chief Williams. That was when Chief Williams attempted the unimaginable. He cornered my mother at the back of the house and tried to force himself on her. But my mother wasn't a weak woman. She grew up in the streets of AJ. She aimed for his groin, overpowered him, and ran. She met my younger brother returning, opening the gate, and escaped from the compound. Before we could even understand what was happening, Chief Williams had already spun a story to his wife in Ibadan. He called his wife in Ibadan and said, "Your driver's wife tried to steal your jewelry. I tried to stop her and she attacked me." Mrs. Williams insisted that my father was part of the plan. She said that her life was in danger because a driver whose wife can attack her husband cannot be trusted. She arranged for another driver to bring her to Lagos and left my father stranded in Ibadan. He had to find his way back to Lagos. Within hours of Mrs. Williams' arrival in Lagos, the police showed up. My mother was arrested immediately and she was charged with stealing and causing bodily harm. She slept in the cell for days for something she never did. We were thrown out of the BQ instantly. My parents had to split us among different friends until they found accommodation again. I will never forget how broken my mother looked the day she was finally released. It felt like a film, but nothing about it was funny. Eventually, I ended up staying with my mother's cousin in Ikeja. They were distant relatives but kind. Her husband employed me as his PA, and that job changed everything. I worked hard, saved, studied, and kept pushing until I relocated to the US. In the US, I did odd jobs, tried schools, got certifications, and fought like a man who never wanted to see poverty again. Every time I remember my mother in that cell, my father abandoned in Ibadan, belonging on the street, I worked harder. I refused to lose. Years later in the US, in church, I met this beautiful lady. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place it. With time, we became close. She was elegant, kind, soft-spoken, broken, but healing. I didn't know she was the Williams' last daughter. She wasn't using their surname. She wasn't using the Nigerian name I knew. She confided in me that her parents disowned her because she married someone they didn't approve of. When her husband fell ill and she sought their help, they ignored her. She was bitter and hurt. I encouraged her to forgive them, not knowing I was reconnecting her to the same people who tried to destroy my family. We dated for over a year before I discovered who she really was. By then, it was too late to fall out of love. I was already far gone. I didn't tell her immediately. I needed to be sure that my love for her outweighed the things that had happened in the past. A year later, I sat her down and told her, I know your parents, I know your father, because my father used to work for him, and this is what they did to my family. She froze, fear all over her face. She thought I wanted revenge. I assured her, I love you too much to ever hurt you. You are not your parents' sin. Now, it was time to face my own parents. They already knew her and loved her from our phone conversation. We traveled down to Nigeria and I introduced her properly. They welcomed her with open arms. My father objected when he heard who our parents were. But my mother, that same woman she Williams had wrongfully imprisoned, said something I will never forget. She said, God already told me she's the bone of your bone. And that settled it. By this time, our father had suffered a stroke. Banks had seized some of their properties. Life had humiliated them the same way they once humiliated my parents. I brokered peace between my wife and her parents. When I eventually revealed my family background, my mother-in-law stared at me. She must have suspected, but she never imagined the son of a driver could rise like that. Her husband, the same man who lied on my mother, burst into tears. He couldn't speak much. He just cried. My mother-in-law made me promise never to punish their daughter for their sins, and I told her that never, because I love my wife so much. Our traditional wedding was in Lagos. You should have seen my parents. They looked amazing. You would never guess the hell we had crawled out from. By God's grace, I bought them a house in Magodo. My father runs a large farm supplying supermarkets with chicken, beef, and grains. My mother sells fabric. My brothers are all doing well. No one could ever guess where we came from. I have nothing against my in-laws. Why should I? When God writes your story, the ending is always beautiful. Wow. Thank you for trusting me with this story. Your story shook me. The pain, the injustice, and the full circle redemption. What the Williams did to your parents was cruel. Your parents suffered, you children had scars, but you still rose. And that is not luck, that is God. That is God in action. And instead of revenge, you chose love. Instead of bitterness, you chose healing. And instead of repeating pain, you rewrote the story. Only God writes endings like that. Your wife is blessed to have a man who understands loyalty. Your parents lived to see honor return to their homes. And your in-laws tasted mercy they never expected. This is more than a story. It's a proof that forgiveness is strength. Whenever you're ready for your book, I'm here. Guys, what do you think about this story? Drop your comments. You've been watching Life Stories with Bussy. My name is Adebusola Daily Davids. See you in the next story. Bye.